the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan. Chairman Jordan, good to see you again. Thanks for being with us.
You bet.
I want to start with this sort of bombshell that John Solomon put out at Just the News. He reveals that Comey expected to work for President-elect Clinton, knew that the top aide was leaking and talking to the media. Lindsay Halligan, the Eastern District U.S. Attorney, is now responding to a lot of these things, saying, hey, Comey, you knew a lot of this stuff was happening. You aided and abetted it. What is your takeaway on this, and how does it impact anything that you guys might do on your side?
Well, look, we all knew Jim Comey was a problem. We all knew that he did all kinds of things, was out to get President Trump. We knew he was involved in changing the intelligence community assessment back in 2016. And of course, before the election, and now based on the notes we've got and what the good work that Ms. Halligan's doing there in the Eastern District of Virginia, we learned that he knew that Clinton, this was all political. You know, the whole dossier, remember, it was the Clinton campaign who hired the law firm Perkins Coie, who hired the public relations firm Fusion GPS, who hired a foreigner, Christopher Steele, who wrote a document that was garbage, and yet Comey's FBI used it to go as the basis to go spy on President Trump's campaign. So Comey knew all this stuff, and he knew what Clinton was up to, and the notes now reveal that. So, this is just Jim Comey being Jim Comey. He thinks he's better than the rest of us, thinks he's smarter than the rest of us, and of course, it looks like he wasn't square when he testified in front of Congress. That's one of the charges against him. When he was taking questions from Senator Cruz. So Comey's Comey, and we'll see what happens as this prosecution moves forward.
When he starts discussing the response to some of these questions that he's been asked, he says I was being literally true, and I'm wondering if that's trying to be cute by half, which is technically I knew it wasn't right what I was answering members of Congress, but I was being literally true. There's clearly a sleight of hand going on there, right?
Yeah. And who talks that way? I was being literally true. You're either being true or you weren't, right? You're telling the truth or you weren't. No, I mean, and we all know one thing, because we saw this with Mr. Brennan a couple of weeks ago. It's why we did a referral for him. You're not supposed to lie, but you're definitely not supposed to lie when you're under oath talking to Congress. And you can be cute like Mr. Comey always thinks he is. You know, he's the same guy who remember, he's the same guy who on the beach arranged the stuff and said, I just stumbled upon the 8647, all this stuff. So like, come on. We all get this guy. And remember too, because the left always points to when Comey came out a couple weeks or before the election and said he was going to reopen the investigation into Clinton. The reason he did all that is because everyone at the time thought Clinton was going to win. Comey thought she was going to win. And this was something I think, this is what I believe, that he did as a way to say, I was just being so fair, because he thought the game was already over and Clinton was going to win this thing. So I think he's been Comey the whole way through.
All right. I want to move to another gem, Jack Smith. Yeah. This is really interesting because according to the New York Times, this is what they say. Mr. Smith has told people in his orbit that he welcomes the opportunity to present the public case against Mr. Trump denied to him by the Supreme Court decision. But he is telling you, the chairman of the committee, the terms in which he will do this. Yeah. Basically saying, hey, Jim Jordan, I'll come to you only if you'll allow me to do this in public in a certain way. What is the state of play? Are you requiring him to testify behind closed doors, to be subpoenaed? Are you acquiescing to his apparent public demands that this all happen in public? Like, what is the state of play?
No, our plan is to have him in a deposition format. After we've getting all the documents, more information keeps coming in. We get more information from the FBI. Once his shutdown's over, it'll be nice because we'll be able to get the information in a more timely fashion. But we're continuing to get information from the FBI. Of course, Senator Grassley is a whistleblower who's giving information relative to the Arctic Frost investigation, which then became part of the Jack Smith special counsel investigation. So we continue to get that information. We want all the facts. But we want to talk to Mr. Smith in a deposition format, like we did his deputies, like we did Mr. Bratt and Mr. Wyndham. We've already deposed them. They took the fifth 71 and 73 times, respectively. They took the fifth to questions like, was this a political operation designed to harm President Trump? I take the fifth. I refuse to answer on exercise my Fifth Amendment liberties. We ask, how many other people in the Congress did you spy on in addition to the what now looks like 12 senators? Who else did you spy on? Who else did you surveil? Who else did you get phone records? I take the fifth. So we want to see what Mr. Smith says when we ask him those kind of questions and others that we're developing as we continue to get information. But this is the way it works. We get the documents, we get the information, we get all the stuff that he got, the 400 and some people and entities he surveilled who are part of the Republican Party. We want to get all that information and then have him in a deposition, ask questions, and then we'll decide if it makes sense for him to be in a public setting.
So for somebody who's watching right now and says, wait a second, Chairman Jordan, this guy, Jack Smith, is saying, I want to do it in public, I want to do it out in the open, and you want me to come behind a closed door. Explain to people watching why a deposition format gets you more than a public hearing person.
Well, first of all, he wants to do it right away. So, I mean, if we do this right away, before we've got all the documents, we don't know all the questions we want to ask him. So that's one. Second, in a public hearing, it's 5 minutes per member. Takes, 5 hours. That's fine, but it's only 5 minutes that you get. It's tough sometimes to develop the line of question you really want to develop, excuse me, and get the answers that you think that are there in a 5-minute setting. In a deposition format, the way it works in Congress depositions, each side gets gets 1 hour each. So we'll go 1 hour for Republicans, Democrats get an hour. 1 hour for Republicans again, back to Democrats. It goes back and forth, and you get an hour where not just members, but our chief counsel, our lawyers as part of the staff of the Judiciary Committee are asking questions. In fact, they will do most of the deposition with members present. I've probably been in more of these probably than any member of Congress in the last decade. So that's how and it's just a different format where you get more information because you can keep asking on the subject, keep pressing, getting the information that you think is important for the American people to have.
Right, and I wanted you to say that because I think that's the key here, to be able to go back and forth with them over a prolonged period of time. I've been through a few depositions myself, unfortunately. Yeah. It's very different than one member randomly ping-ponging a subject where you're not having the exchange. The Senate is apparently looking at doing a public hearing as well. Do you care whether or not the Senate does their own hearing before you, potentially? Okay.
That's up to Senator Grassley. God bless him. So we're getting a bunch of information from the FBI. Senator Grassley is getting some information as well from a whistleblower. That's all fine. If they want to go public, that's up to Senator Grassley, Senator Johnson, and the Judiciary Committee and those individuals in the Senate. That's fine. I know how we want to proceed with our investigation, and this is the way we've done all the others that I've been involved with over the last, like I said, last 10, 12, 15 years.
So in the New York Times piece, it says this, because it's talking about the difference between the Senate approach and your approach. This is the New York Times. It says the smarter play, they said, is to intensify the effort by Republican representatives on Capitol Hill, that would be you and your colleagues, the White House, the Justice Department, and the FBI, to unearth, release, and publicize internal documents that would prove Mr. Smith had engaged in a politically motivated witch hunt. Is that the approach?
Well, that's how the New York Times framed it. What we're trying to do is get the facts, and here are the facts. This is the Jack Smith, Arctic Frost special counsel investigation that got a gag order on President Trump, that raided his home, that took the phone of a sitting member of Congress, surveilled him for a week before they took Scott Perry's phone, took it from him while he was on vacation with his family on the Jersey Shore. This is the same Jack Smith who tried to intimidate a defendant's counsel when they said to Stanley Woodward, we didn't know you were a Trump guy. We thought you wanted this judge position. This is the same Jack Smith who went out and got the phone logs of 12 United States senators. This is the same Jack Smith whose deputies took the fifth, as I said earlier, 71 and 73 times. And now we find out this is the same Jack Smith who said to, for example, Dan Scavino, we want your bank records. And oh, by the way, don't tell, we want Ted Cruz's phone records, phone logs. And by the way, AT&T, Verizon, you phone companies, don't tell the member that we got that information. You can't disclose that to him. Are you kidding me? So of course we want all that information, and we want him in a deposition format where we can ask him questions about all that.
When it came out about Arctic Frost, this whole investigation into Republican members, you mentioned some of the phones that were seized. Grassley on the Senate side has released a 2023 document showing that the FBI analyzed phone records of 9 Republican lawmakers. Has there been any account as to why that happened?
No, and it's interesting because it happened, I believe when they did that was May of 23. So Jack Frost had been after this, and they don't really analyze the data that they collected until after they've already indicted President Trump. Later in the summer, they indict President Trump. They don't analyze the phone logs that they got from eight members of the United States Congress. They don't analyze that until later on. So I find all that interesting. One of the things we always do in these investigations is we lay out the timeline, what all happens when this thing was. Arctic Frost gets opened in April of 2022, I believe. And then the Jack Frost gets named in November of 22. Excuse me, April Arctic Frost gets launched earlier. Jack Frost doesn't get, or Jack Smith, Jack Frost, he doesn't get named special counsel until November 18th. What I find interesting about that, by the way, is the election day, I think was November 8th. President Trump announces on November 15th, 2022 that he's running for president. 3 days later, Merrick Garland names Jack Frost. 3 days after President Trump announces he's running, we need a special counsel, and the guy we want is Jack Smith coming in here and doing this. So, I find all that interesting, and it's again why we think it's important that Jack Smith come in and sit for a deposition.
When Pam Bondi says there'll be accountability, do you think that it's helpful that you guys go first, get a lot of this information out, hand it, and refer it over to DOJ, or is she potentially moving on her own parallel track?
All I know is we got to do what we're required to do under the Constitution, which is oversight. I'll use a different example. John Brennan. We did a referral for him, criminal referral, 2.5 weeks ago. I tell people we don't do these very often. The facts have to be there, and with this guy, they were there, and so we sent that over to Attorney General Bondi. We'll see what she does. What I know is, as I said earlier, you're not supposed to lie. You're definitely not supposed to lie when you're under oath talking to Congress. And it looks like John Brennan did just that. He said he wasn't involved with the dossier, didn't want the dossier in the intelligence community assessment. This summer, Tulsi Gabbard declassifies and releases a report by the House Intelligence Committee from several years ago, which shows just the opposite. It says in there, John Brennan put in writing, include the dossier in the ICA assessment. And maybe more importantly, they relate a story where a CIA official comes up to Mr. Brennan and says, Director, we shouldn't include this dossier. It just doesn't hold up. There's no intelligence to support this thing. This just doesn't fit. And John Brennan's response was, yeah, but doesn't it ring true? Showing and displaying his motivation, like, I don't care. It sounds like what I want it to sound like. We're going after Trump. So, yeah, we referred him to the Justice Department, and we'll see what they decide to do with that. But I think it's clear he lied to us.
There are 51 intelligence, quote unquote, officials that said that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. Whether they lied or didn't know the truth, they had a government issued security clearance. Is that just something that they should have the security clearances stripped as Trump has done? Or should they face some kind of criminal prosecution for using the sort of the premature of I have a government security clearance, I'm an intelligence official, and this is Russian disinformation?
Well, I certainly support them having their security clearance taken as the White House did. I appreciate what President Trump did there. Appreciate what President Trump's done on so many things. But whether there's crime there, I doubt. But I leave that to the Justice Department. But it's interesting, Sean, you bring that up, because it was in that context that we were deposing Mr. Brennan. We brought him in our investigation of these 51 intel officials, where we learned all this, because we got information from the government, and we were able to put this together. So we're deposing him relative to that investigation, and it's in that investigation where we get into the dossier from earlier, where he says things that just aren't true. So I find that, Mr. Brennan wasn't square with the American people when he signed onto that letter with 51. He wasn't square to us when we asked him about the dossier. And frankly, I don't think he was square with then Congressman Gowdy when Trey asked him questions several years ago about the dossier. So I think there's a pattern with John Brennan. And again, we lay all that out in the letter that we sent to Attorney General Bondi.
By the way, that makes the case again about why a deposition matters, because this is the kind of format that you get it.
Yep.
The last thing I want to ask you about, Chairman, is the shutdown. Beyond all of your investigative work, you're obviously a fairly well-known conservative. And so there's now deals in the rumor mill, in the ether, being floated that says, hey, we'll have a short-term kind of CR. It will open the government back up till, who knows, December, January. We'll give the Dems a vote on these ACA things and potentially have what they call a minibus, which is 3 of the appropriation bills. Is that a construct that you could buy into? Or what, is there a red flag in that deal? Or what would be the flag or the problem?
Well, I mean, the problem is if they just extend these Obamacare subsidies. I mean, it's like, I always tell people, remember, everything they told us about Obamacare turned out to be false. Like your plan, keep your plan. Like your doctor, keep your doctor. Premiums are going to go down. President Obama told us premiums will go down on average $1,500. Well, if that's the case, why do they need to do this subsidy, then expand this subsidy, and then extend this subsidy, and now extend it again? I mean, come on.
But if the deal is just a vote, if all the Dems get is a vote, you're okay with that. If it's, hey, you guys get your vote, you'll vote it down but the deal, as I understand it, that being floated would be, we open the government back up for, December, January. Yeah. The Dems get a guaranteed vote on these subsidies to throw good money after bad. And then maybe we have 3 of the appropriations bills move.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I think the 3 appropriation bills, I think those are pretty settled. I don't know that there's a big problem there. I think the big concern could potentially be, what's the date of the CR? Because you know how this works, Sean. You've been around this town.
All right, so that's what I wanted you to get to. What's the problem?
If it goes to December 19th, which some are talking about, you know how that is. We haven't seen this play before. You have some big bill right before Christmas.
Is there something the next week that you would want to cut a deal for to get out of town, maybe?
Exactly. So I hope that if it's not like December 8th, it's always December 18th, 19th, 20th. It's always right there, right before Christmas. So I would prefer it be, if we're going to do this, do it into January. I think that's probably where the White House is too. I don't know if I've seen, but that just makes more sense. And then let's do the appropriation bills. Let's do our job like we're supposed to. What I also am concerned about is, if we have a vote, I don't want it to pass. So we'll see. We'll see what the vote is. I mean, if they're going to just get a vote and it's not going to pass, that's one thing. If it's going to pass and we continue giving these subsidies that go primarily to insurance companies, and they're benefiting people who are making like over $200,000 too, I don't know that makes a whole lot of sense. So I want to see the whole package, but I don't dismiss it out of hand. I do think, though, it's important that we not have the deadline be December 19th.
Okay. Congressman Jim Jordan, thanks for all the work that you're doing. Appreciate it. Keep it going, man. Thank you.
All right. Take care.